cartoon logic and narcissism. You know, a while back I saw some men on social media talking about how it seemed that every woman thought she'd been with a narcissist and that there weren't that many narcissists because only like 5 to 10% of the population has been diagnosed with NPD. And I responded back then, well, a person having narcissistic traits doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. All right, because again, NPD is a clinical diagnosis, but being narcissistic is a description. And narcissistic traits existed before people were being diagnosed with NPD. You know, so these traits have been around for a long time. Just like people could be described as manic and they're not, you know, they're not clinically manic. You know what I'm saying? So a description has existed. And now people are applying that description to a person, not saying that they have NPD, but saying, hey, you act like this. This is what I see. This is the trait that I see. But let me go back to this cartoon logic. I was on TikTok a few minutes ago, and there was a woman who stitched another creator's video, and the creator was Queen Sovereign, and the other creator was It's Lizzie B. And they were talking about how when you get to be friends with men, as a woman, sometimes men become so comfortable with you that they will tell you casually how they essayed another woman. Because in their mind, there's nothing wrong with it. Because in their mind, they're so a part of rape culture that they don't realize that what they're describing is rape. And Lizzie B was saying, in her mind, it was like cartoon logic. It was like, when you watch a cartoon as a kid, some of us who are older, we watched Tom and Jerry, we watched, you know, some of the Looney Tunes cartoons where these characters were beating the crap out of each other. They were dropping anvils on each other. They were falling off of cliffs. And it was laughable because you knew that the very next episode, they'd be fine. The very next scene, they'd be fine. They'd pop right back. There would be no scars. There would be no injuries. No one would be worse off for this experience. And she was saying that that is almost the way it seemed like these men were relating these stories. Like, oh man, I got over on her. I did this. Almost like it's a cartoon scene. Like, yes, I beat the crap out of her, but she's bouncing right back. She's not scarred. She's not damaged. She's not traumatized because this is a cartoon. Ha ha. It's funny. But people are not cartoons. People are individuals. People are not tools either. You can use a tool and not take care of it. And a lot of times that tool will still be fine. Some tools are worse for wear, but some tools, they take a licking and keep on ticking. You know, so this idea that women are almost cartoons or they're almost tools or they're less than human is a big part of patriarchy, but it's also a sign of some narcissistic traits. You know, to be diagnosed with NPD, you only have to have 5 of 9 common narcissistic traits. And some of those traits relate directly to this kind of behavior, that some of these men believe that they're so unique and they're so special that they can get away with things that the average person can't because they deserve that. And there's also this sense of entitlement that they're entitled to getting their needs met, no matter who has to suffer, no matter who has to sacrifice, no matter who else has to go without. And that they exhibit behavior that is interpersonally exploitative. They are willing to exploit their personal relationships to get what they want. They show almost no empathy for others, and they seem arrogant. So I just gave you 5 traits. So if that person were to go before a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a medical professional, and they exhibited these 5 traits, they could be diagnosed with NPD. If that was a pattern that they had in many of their interpersonal relationships. So when women say, hey, I dated this narcissist, that's what they mean. They don't mean that he's been diagnosed with NPD. They mean that they saw these traits. And even if they just saw those 5, that would be clinically enough if they were a doctor to diagnose him. And so when we say sometimes that people are narcissists, this is what we're talking about. This idea that people are tools, that people are cartoons, that we can do whatever we want to these people, and they're just supposed to bounce back. They're not supposed to complain. They're not supposed to have an opinion. They're supposed to just, suffer and take it. And even you see some of this in the rhetoric about loyalty from the past, like women in relationships in the past, they were loyal. Well, loyal doesn't mean taking whatever abuse someone gives you and being quiet and acting like nothing happened. That's not what loyalty is. So again, people are exploiting their relationships with others by the language that they use, by the mind games that they play, by the guilt trips that they use, by trying to act like they know what's best for somebody else. Another technique, I'm just doing what's best for you. You don't seem to know what's best for you, so I'm going to tell you what the best thing for you is. That's a form of manipulation. And it's something that, again, narcissistic people do, because they use a lot of manipulative techniques. They use gaslighting. They use DARVO, which is deny, accuse, and reverse victim and offender. So some of these men who have SA'd women, they deny that they do it. They accuse the woman of leading them on. They accuse the woman of being into it. They accuse the woman of not really meaning no. And then they reverse victim and offender. They're not the offender. No, they're the victim because how dare she do X, Y, and Z. So again, we have to look at this behavior and see it for what it is. See it for the exploitative behavior that it is. See it for the manipulation that it is. See it for the arrogance and entitlement that some of these men have. And see it for exactly what it is, and not sugarcoat it, not excuse it, not let patriarchy normalize it, because it's not normal. This is not healthy. This is not normal. This should not be condoned. We need to call people out. Men and women need to call people out when they are being exploitative and being narcissistic. And we don't need to treat relationships like they're cartoons where people can just bounce back from abuse and trauma, because people don't just bounce back like cartoons. They're not ready for the next scene where they get to do it all over again and they get to be treated like that again. That's not the way people work. Cartoons work that way. People don't. May you walk in Zenergy. Cartoon logic and narcissism.